Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. This is going to be about mediation. As they say, the future is here. It's today. Mediation is not a bill anymore, it's an act. It is by statute that now mediation is mandatory, and even with government there is a process. Let's find out more about mediation in this interview with one of the prominent persons in this, that is Mr. Ethelwald Mendes. I'm Dr. Pradeep Reddy and I'll be the host for today. Welcome to today's program, Mr. Mendes. And very briefly, for our viewers' information, let me introduce your brief profile. Obviously, you have a very large profile of 35-40 years, and that will take up the entire time. However, briefly, Mr. Mendes is a practicing advocate in Goa, and he's got a vast amount of experience with mediation. So, in addition to his other skills, this mediation is the topic of today's interest, and that's what we can learn more from him on what is mediation. Of course, mediation itself is a vast topic, but as we keep talking to Mr. Mendes, let me narrow it down so that we can focus on a little bit niche areas, and then we can learn from your experience. So the first question I have is, when it comes to mediation, at which stage do you prefer a mediation? That is before filing a suit, or once the suit is filed and parties are already delayed by 20 or 30 years? How do you feel?
I do not have a preference of time for mediation. I have an issue that mediation is not resorted to. It does not matter whether you start it at the time of the drafting clause, because that is where actually you need the mediation. You start negotiate while drafting the clause of mediation, while actually performing with your counterparty, which may then become your opponent. So you are already negotiating, and if you have a difficulty, you need to have mediation rather than the contract or the agreement fluttering or you compromising without understanding the concepts or getting the other side to understand why you require consent. So therefore, I would say that mediation need not start in the beginning. You don't have to wait till the end, and you don't have to say that, okay, I've done it once, I can't do it twice. You can do mediation any number of times. And I would ask people not to give up on their attempt to mediation despite the fact that they have done it once.
When it comes to mediation, if you are given a preference, which one would you choose? Pre-litigation mediation or once the litigation has started?
I would always say pre-litigation mediation, because pre-litigation mediation is before the parties have taken a hard stand. And especially in litigation, which is the adversarial method where parties have already taken a stand against each other, and then the mediator is trying to bring them together, it's better to do it at the pre-mediation style where only the parties have drifted apart but not taken firm and hard stands.
But from what some of the feedback which I have been receiving is that whenever there is a government institute involved in mediation, it is very tough. For example, let's say that I have a claim for 100 crores, random number, and you are the opposing government officer, and I want to tell you, let's sit down and mediate, and I'm willing to drop everything if you just give me 1 crore or 10 crore, whatever is your magic number. And I was told that not a single government officer would be willing to sign on it, because somebody would say that it's a scam, or you compromised, or you took a bribe, or some other negative remark. So
You
how?
are absolutely correct on this. And this is exactly why one of the reasons of government organizations being the largest litigant is unable to resolve disputes in mediation. And as a lawyer, I am defending several bureaucrats who are facing the brunt of the PC Act, Prevention of Corruption Act, in which their decisions are being challenged or looked at as if it was being caused as a loss to the government. Fortunately, all that can be a history of the past with the new Mediation Act. Because the new Mediation Act, fortunately, has envisaged this problem, and there is a special committee when it comes to government issues where the proposal can be placed before the committee comprising of bureaucrats and various other professionals, and their decision would then protect a public servant and thereby facilitate settlements to mediation.
Okay. Let me elaborate on that for the benefit of our viewers, that the mediation bill is now an act because of the recent Gazette notification.
That's true.
And when there is a government party involved, it requires a mandatory mediation. Kindly correct me if I'm wrong. But the government officer doesn't come to a conclusion then. He takes the offer to his higher authorities and then gets back for a concurrence.
Not merely to his higher authorities, he takes it to his organization, whether it's like in some organization it's a corporate board, some organization it's the governing board, some organization it's the minister involved. Once he gets the green clearance or the signal or in principle acceptance, he then takes it before a special committee.
But that's where I feel that there's something which is lacking, because when we are sitting in a room and mediation, whichever way, physically or online, then there is something called emotion which we can see across the room. But when you translate that and draft it as a offer on a paper, and the committee or a minister or whoever is later reviewing it, they may not have the same concept of the emotion.
You are true there, but in that concept, in that committee, what really takes place is not negotiation. It's simply an overview as to whether the proposal that is being likely to be accepted by the government servant on behalf of the government is a viable one and an appropriate one.
So it's more of a SWOT analysis or value
Yes.
engineering kind of situation.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but I'll also share a few examples where the mediation has been successful after the litigation has started. Because until then, people were just threatening each other, saying, I'm going to file a suit, I'm going to file a suit. But once parties had come forward, they submitted their claim and a counterclaim, and they see the evidence which the other party has, then reality strikes them. And it has been more successful even in family matters. After the filing of evidence, that mediations have been more successful, at least to my limited knowledge. I defer to your experience and exposure.
You're correct, because at that time, the reality of what is Vatna comes in. That is the worst alternative to a negotiated settlement. So once the people are able to see that this is the worst alternative, but then you remember that what happens is that it's not a negotiation on equal basis. Because one side has a feeling of success and the other side has a feeling that they are going to lose. And now the scales are not even. So therefore, the negotiation at that stage is a contrived negotiation, and greater skills are required of the mediator to keep the parties together.
I need to stop you right here, because you just used a word called skills. What is that? And why are you doing all these things with your hands? Why are you just not talking and instead using this?
See, one thing is, as human beings, unlike a computer which is just an ordinary screen, and that's why I don't fathom the artificial intelligence unless the robots become more human-like. But there is something known as non-verbal communication. And as human beings, sometimes we are able to relate to a person better with non-verbal skills or supplement those skills, which is like a way of emphasis. And sometimes you are able to understand the other side by the non-verbal gesture that you see, the slight nod of the head, the little bit of irritation on the face, to show that whatever you're speaking is not being accepted or there is some discomfort on the other side. So these are part of the skills that are required in a mediation. And I'm using the skills in a mediation, not just to the mediator, but also to the mediation advocates who are going to be sitting in the room.
Thank you. I can relate to one point there, that a lot of Westerners have a problem with our Indian nod. When we do this or we do this, they don't understand what this nod means. Is it yes or no or what? But leaving that aside, I agree with you that the human non-verbal communications are in fact universal in nature. Whichever country you are, whichever uh, let's say culture you come from, the non-verbal communications are the same. When you do this with your hands up, you're stopping the other person, and you are placing your palms down. It is still the same thing. It is saying stop. Of course, we can talk more about that over a game of poker, but that's some other day. But what other skills would a mediator require?
See, a medium would require, among the most important things is good, effective listening skills. And a friend of mine, uh, Professor Edward Goodman from England, UK, he's a still down there, who is into mediation, has got several books. He says that whenever he sits in a mediation table, he's got a nameplate which says Andrew Goodman in the front. And on the back of it, he says, shut up. That's for him. So a good mediator must remember that it is not he who is negotiating, but the parties who are negotiating. And he is only assisting them. So effective listening skills, and that's why in mediation they will train you that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice and speak once.
Well, it's more like a carpenter saying, measure twice, cut once.
Cut once.
Yes. So, but you also said earlier about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So maybe take a minute or so to enlighten us.
Now, artificial intelligence, in a sense, is two things today. One is replacement of the intelligence of the human, which is fine because today you see you calculator. The humans were calculating using their ordinary mind skills, and you replace it with a calculator. Whether that's good or bad is for another topic, and it can go on for a long time. But this is the replacements or the enhancement skill that's available. The other thing on artificial intelligence is replacing the human itself. And this is the frightening part where you talk about replacing the human itself. If artificial intelligence is only used to supplement the existing process and assist the existing process, then yes, it's good. Just like the computer today is assisting us to communicate from distances away. It's enabling us to use a process and do that. But imagine if this whole interview was to be done in the meta world with avatars, and I am playing my tennis downstairs and my avatar is talking out here. Now, what the avatar does is not what I have control over. And let me share a little bit because I was in Rotterdam in 2020, in which a pilot project of a complete unmanned vessel and a port based on artificial intelligence was going to be all about. And in that negotiation, I had asked 3 questions. And that will probably explain the whole confusion about artificial intelligence. Because in that vessel, the vessel is not controlled by a computer, but is controlled by the artificial intelligence on board, which will decide what cargo, which port, and when to go, depending upon tide, price, and etc. The owner will only receive his money in the bank. So I asked a question that if there is a mishap and under the administrative jurisdiction, whom do you arrest? So there's no captain on board. Do you arrest the man who created the artificial intelligence? Do you arrest the computer which is on board of the vessel? Or do you arrest the owner who has no control of the vessel? So what do you arrest? You don't arrest a thing. In administrative jurisdiction, you actually arrest the captain, though you call it a ship. And 2, how do you replace the sailors on board of a country whose sole economy depends upon them? So the human interface is lost in artificial intelligence. And the most important thing is what I told is that artificial intelligence cannot deal with human emotions. And this is something that we cannot go about because man is a social animal.
Fair enough. But you also said about artificial intelligence, but certain benefits such as this online dispute resolution. Can I ask you what was your first case, or when was the first case
In
related to
fact,
online dispute resolution?
many years ago,
Not
when
post-COVID.
much before COVID,
Okay.
when when people didn't even know what the word online dispute resolution was not even coined, I had the good fortune of using Yahoo Messenger years back. Today, Yahoo Messenger doesn't exist anymore, in which I was helping to mediate a dispute between a party who was settled in Taiwan, who's the wife of a sailor from the Filipino who died in an accident on a ship belonging to a company in Hong Kong and the insurance company from Thailand, Horavaya. And the dispute was all over the compensation and whether the appeal should continue. And the appellate court had asked the parties to try and resolve the matter. So I was able to use Yahoo Messenger with different chat boxes and get the parties to understand where their Vatna was and the possible Zopa.
So you are using an Indian song in addition to that, based on a American software
Yes,
and probably a Japanese computer.
that's true.
So this is wonderful, and I also know that you are serving on the ICC competitions and several other
Yes.
competitions. What message, as a concluding remark, would you pass on to our message, to our audience?
Now, what the ICC has been doing is absolutely wonderful. It's been taking students, putting them on a world stage, exposing them to the best mediators, because in that competition, the mediators are professionals from all over the world. The judges are also mediators from all over the world who give them feedback depending upon the negotiation skills that the students display. But I have been trying to advocate ICC to bring their competition outside the confines of the student community and bring the general public to observe a commercial mediation so that the users are now sensitized and made aware of how the younger generation and the future of dispute settlement will look like.
So when you say student, is it a young guy, or can a senior person also sit as a student?
Out of the students that I've had, the Asian students are all young students. They are all up to the graduation age of maybe 21 at the highest, maybe 18 at the youngest. There was one that was at 18, just passed out in the first year of college. But in the Western world, I've seen some students who have come in at 35 years. Because in the West, students do high school, they take a sabbatical, they go work, create money, and then come back to university. And it's the university eligibility which does not make a distinction on age. So therefore, in the West, I have seen students at 35 plus. Some of them, even with a master's management degree, now coming to do it. So therefore, there have been a variation of students, but by and large, they are all college students in either graduation or post-graduation studies.
One final question, if you don't mind, is probably what is the value, in terms monetary value, of the highest case that you have heard that has been successful in mediation, maybe handled or heard in your circles?
I would say that among the most successful mediations so far, because commercial mediation, unfortunately, has not embraced this dispute mechanism. But when you ask me, my most successful mediation has been one that has got a value, but it's not the value in the mediation because it was a dispute over a family settlement inheritance. So in that sense, it was a dispute between the families being unable to sit together at a table and understand the sharing of the assets. And it has been a few in India, it was an Indian case, so it has been a few crores of rupees worthwhile real estate values wise. But as I said, on the table, the values were not being discussed. But outside the table, the properties and the real estate were really hugely valuable. And they've been contested. They would have gone all the way to the Supreme Court because the values were worth that.
So that was a wonderful session, Mr. Mendes. And let me use a non-verbal cue.
Thank you. Yes. It was a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Reddy. And I'm absolutely thankful for you taking some time and doing this awesome service in the field of ADR.
Thank you very much once again.